Now, the issue that we're going to be trying to solve here is a very common one that a lot of animators run into at some point in their animations, which is when you have to deal with multiple axes to move in one direction. So, for example, let's say I have this character and we'll do 41 frames. If I have the character move forward here, we have this nice slide. And if I open up my graph editor, we have one axis that's doing that. He's just moving forward. That's it. Done. Easy. No problem. If I have to adjust his spacing, okay, just take that. I want that kind of linear motion, then he eases in. Done. Easy. Wow. All polished, ready to go. But what happens if your character walks in a slightly different direction? So my character is acting, he's doing his thing, and then he turns around this way and then walks forward. So I'll set my first key here. Next key, we're just sliding him forward like that. Look at our graph editor. Suddenly, he's not moving in one axis, he's moving in two, because he's going in X and Z at the same time. You can see this with the world manipulator here. He's not lining up with these manipulators. Okay, well, let's go in and adjust my translate Z. That's the forward rotation or translation, right? Well, let's fix that right there. Now, what the heck? That's not a straight line. Okay, let me adjust my translate X. And I'll just do this. Oh, that's not a straight line. I'm fighting both of these. This becomes nightmarish when you have to deal with this. And this happens in all sorts of cases. And in many cases, you don't really have to worry about it too much. If it happens over like 6 frames or something like that, it's not so hard to just manually put things in where you want it to be. But let's say you've got a character who they were doing a whole bunch of acting in your shot, and they get up and now they're just going to start walking down the street. And it's going to be a long walk. Having to deal with this for a long period of time, especially if the character has to speed up and slow down. Maybe they're walking and they slow down, have thought before, they keep going. That's going to be a real pain. So, what can we do? Well, there's a few different things you can do. There's quite a few different things. We're going to be exploring 2. Now, the first one is very simple. You need to plan your shot better. Now, I say this, but it's a very hard thing to do. Essentially, if you know that your character is going to be walking in one direction for a very long time, ideally what you should do is take your root control and rotate that in the direction that they're going to walk, so that when they do get to that walking point, they are going to be moving in a straight line. That root control helps to reorient the character to the world. Great. If you figured that out before you did any animation. If you've already animated everything, it's a little late. And this is what most of the time happens with me, where I'm animating a shot and sometimes I'll get it, but a lot of times I'm animating and, it would be cool if my character went this way. And then later on it's like, dang it, why did I do that? And now my character's walking in 2 axes and I can't just rotate the root control because it's going to ruin everything else. So, first way, you want to be prepared and move your root control start. If that's too late, the second way that I like to do this is with a, how do I want to put this? A constraint trick. So, essentially what I need is a way to reorient the body. I need a way to animate the body, but have it move in one clean axis. Now, actually, I should also mention there is another scenario. What happens if your character is walking in one direction for a while, and then they turn and they walk in another direction. Even if you rotate the root control, that doesn't solve the multiple direction issue. So this scenario that I'm going to show here can work with as many directions as you want. So this is what I like about this method. So once again, the issue is that we're trying to move the character forward, but because we're going at kind of a 3/4 angle, we're having to fight the X and Z axes at the same time. So we need a way to reorient and simplify the animation. So how do we do that? Well, the way I like to do it is with a locator trick. So I'm going to create a locator, and we're going to call this, let's just give it a name, Bob. I'm not going to go with Bob. This is going to be, let's call it new orient. So it's going to be our new orientation. Now, if I just have a locator like this and rotate it to match where he's going, you'll notice that, well, that didn't solve anything. I created a locator and I'm going to have the same issue. They're both moving in X and Z. But if I take my locator and I'm going to group it. So let's actually undo this so it's right at the center line here. So I'm going to take my locator and group it. I'm just going to hit Control G. So we can see in the outliner, there's our group. If I take that group and rotate it, and then move the locator, look at that. It's moving in one axis. Essentially, I've created a root control for this locator with the group. And this allows me to orient it and have it go in whatever direction I want. And you can see it's one axis. Okay, great. How does that help me? Well, what I can do here is use this as a way of capturing my animation and simplifying it. So essentially what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain it here first, and then we'll go through the steps. I'm going to copy my animation from the character onto the locator, so it follows along with. Then I'm going to take my locator, bake out that animation so it is keyed, and then take that and constrain my character to the locator. So then the locator is leading it with the simplified animation, which is exactly the same as my original animation. So kind of complex, but let's go through the steps here. So first step, I need to orient this group to my character. I want it to face in the same direction that my character is going to walk into. So this is where, if you've got a complex scene, you would go to the frame where the character starts going in that direction. And then you're going to take your root control, or sorry, your cog. And then I'm going to take the group. And I like constraints. You can also go to, I think it's modify, match transformations. And let's just match all of it right there. Oop, and I got the order wrong here. So in this case, it's going to be group, then cog, and then match all. There you go. So now my group has been rotated to match the body right there, which means my locator, if I move it forward, is going to follow the exact path that my character should be walking in right there. Okay, so I've lined everything up. Now I need to capture the animation. So I'm going to take my cog here, then my locator, and I'm going to constrain the locator to the cog. So I'm going to go to parent. I'm going to just make sure maintain offset is turned on. There we go. Now the locator moves with the character right through there. Perfect. It follows along and it's headed in the same direction. Now, what I can do is take the locator, and I don't want it to be constrained anymore. I want to turn this back into keyframe animation. So I'm going to select it, go to Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation. And in this case, I'm just going to do a smart bake. It's going to put keys wherever it feels it needs them, and not worry about putting an excess amount of keys. And then we'll just bake that out. There we go. So here we have that curve. This locator is no longer constrained. It's just doing its own thing. But if you watch it, it follows along with the character still. So I've essentially copied my animation from the character onto this locator. Now, the reason I did a constraint and not just a copy paste is because both of these objects have different orientations. The character here is moving in X and Z like we showed before. You can see there, big values. But if you look at the locator, look at the X value. It's super low. There's almost nothing to it. We've got a different set of values. That's why you use the constraint and then the bake simulation. You're copying it on, but copying the exact movement and not the values, the numbers. So with this, we've got our locator in place. All I need to do now is reverse the constraint, where I want the locator now to lead the character. So I'm going to take my locator, then the cog, constrain parent, and you'll see this is constrained now. If I move my locator, it follows along. And honestly, the animation is going to look no different. But now, because I'm animating the locator, which is lined up here, you can see if I move it in Z, it's only moving in one axis right there. I can come in and let's adjust my spacing. So maybe I'll have that ease in just a little less right there, like so. And you can see he's still moving in that perfect straight line. Done. I get nice clean animation, no issue. I've still got a little side to side here. That's because I still had that little wiggle from when I was tweaking the curves. I can either get rid of that now, or maybe I do want a little bit of an arc. And I want that character as they're walking through to just move a little bit to the side here. But now I have full control on that arc versus having to fight both translation X and Z, and like the curves aren't working out and it's just a pain. So essentially, let's just zero this out for the sake of it. Let's compare our curves. So before, for the same motion, we were getting a curve that looked like this. Two curves going in opposite directions that we have to fight to get this to work. Or if we select our locator here, that one curve, done. That's it. So it's a little bit of prep and a little kind of thinking outside the box, but it's a very quick setup that allows you to simplify an action very, very quickly. Now, let's say you have your character stop and walk in another direction. All you do is take your constraint here, turn it off, and switch to a different constraint. Another locator going in a different direction. So you'd block out your scene exactly how you would normally. No constraints, no locators, nothing. Just block it out how you want. When you're ready to go to splines and have to deal with this horrible mess here, you create your network of locators that the character is essentially going to jump from one to the next, kind of jumping rails, essentially. So he jumps onto the one locator, walks forward, it's moving him forward. Then you go on to the next one, moves him forward. But all of it was baked from your original blocking. So it's already in place and you're just doing a quick curve cleanup and you're done. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I know it wasn't the most visually dynamic demo because the character is literally just sliding and not actually walking. But the same thing would apply if you've got the ups and downs of the walk, the side to side, all of that. It just simplifies your curves essentially and makes motions that would normally be hair-pullingly complex so much easier. So hopefully that helps. And Rithika, I'd definitely be happy to take a look at your shot. If you have a link to it, just post in the chat. So let's see. Please save and post this clip because this is a little bit over my head. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to practice this. Essentially, the concept is that you just want to have a locator in a group so that you can reorient it to match the character. And then you do a constraint, bake, constraint. That's the simplified version of it.